Hey everybody, just a short little video. Wanted to share two thoughts, and it's really quick. Something I've seen in the headlines, and I know I'm sometimes behind on this, but some very well-known professing Christians trying to interpret their dreams and use that as the basis for their fault finding or things. I just want to say, number one, we got to be very careful. And I can say from a time in my own life when I remember I was going through a lot, and then I had a dream and I was trying to interpret my life through that lens. I just want to say that I don't believe that was really from the Lord in hindsight. I believe you have to be careful because Satan can also seek to meddle in the supernatural and deceive us. I'm not saying the Lord can't speak supernaturally, but we need to be very careful when it comes to our personal experiences. And I've not been perfect in that in my life. And I understand that very well, having grown up with a charismatic background. There's a lot of things that then later on, more wisdom and discernment and kind of learning to check my own emotions is something that I had to learn, that discipline and that spiritual maturity. But I'm not perfect. There's times that I still get kept swept up in something. And that's the second thing I want to address. We're seeing lots and lots of news that can be very agitating. And I remember back in 2020, I'm going to mention a name. I remember when the George Floyd stuff happened, when that first happened and I'm locked in my house, we're all quarantined and I'm seeing all the news. I was really stirred up and really out of whack. And to be honest, I didn't look at all the facts. And I just want to encourage a pause for those of us who profess faith in the Lord. Yes, it is true to have a concern and a grief over loss of life, but at the same time, we need to pause because today, everything is so publicized. People have their smartphones, people take videos. We see so much stuff before investigations and facts really come out. And, I've made the mistake, and I've been a leader most of my life. I've made the mistake of speaking on something I didn't have all the facts. And so what I want to say is we need to remember two things. One, the Lord has ordained in the book of Romans that government does not bear the sword in vain. If there is a need for defense or need for defense of life, or even an officer defending himself, we need to acknowledge that is not a wrong thing. Number two, we don't have all the facts. Things are highly politicized right now. But I can say this with 100% certainty. We completely have seen an effort, I would argue probably before 2020, but especially since 2020, on controlling the population through fear, and on one side of something being reported that does not tell the whole picture. And so let's pause, let's bring the temperature down, let's remember the fact for those living in the US, we live in a democratic republic, not a democracy where we get to vote on everything, and governing officials have authority to arrest and to defend and to all those things. It's not a bad thing. And so just in light of all the stuff, if you're getting real riled up as a Christian to be protesting or to be speaking out in defense of something like this happening, I just would urge caution. Okay, I made the mistake myself before. And I'm probably not going to be perfect in that in the future. I'm trying to be very careful and to grow in that, and that's how I'm trying to grow. But let's be very careful, especially as Christians, when we're making statements on one side of whatever issue that is seeming to undermine a biblical function of government, to bear the sword not in vain. Number two, seeking to undermine the officials and those that God has given us for public safety. It's not that there's never dirty cops. It's not that there's never bad situations or ever any abuses. Certainly those things happen. But that doesn't mean that every police officer or every military personnel is horrible or bad. Okay, there's bad things everywhere. There's bad pastors. Doesn't mean every pastor's bad. There's bad teachers. Where I live, there's a whole lot of bad public school teachers. The evidence comes out of all their sexual abuse to students. Doesn't mean that every teacher is bad. There is some wisdom, though. I will end with this. There's wisdom when you see a pattern of proven abuses and proven crimes to very strongly consider, okay, what am I going to do? Not only your part to speak up in terms of voting and everything you can do as a citizen in the country God's placed you in, but two, what are you allowing your kids and your family to be in? If you're seeing report after report, like the area I live in, greater Chicago area, horrible school systems, horrible crime rates, horrible things, you got to ask yourself some honest questions of, look, there's going to be some boundaries. That may make life more difficult, but living in a Sodom and Gomorrah area, yeah, there's going to be some separation in terms of how my family is going to be interacting with this world. So a couple of quick thoughts. Again, seeking to encourage from the fact that I've not been perfect in these areas. I know that we are human beings that struggle even as Christians, but just want to strongly encourage you. Take a pause, look at Scripture, try to disconnect from the craziness and seeing all the death and destruction that we typically do. Recenter your mind on Christ. Remember the spiritual reality that none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. And if we don't have Christ, then tomorrow hell could be coming.